Black people, the way they think, the way they live, they're undisciplined. There's a lot of biases there. So the people who's done the harm don't get to call the shots around that.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
What happens when people of other cultures that quote unquote non-foundational Black people and they come here, and it's kind of like they're pushed to the forefront as, hey, here they are, they're successful, they're doing it, and then their priority is not the Black community, and then also that with that not being their focus, it also kind of shows in what the things that they do. So Hanifa, I would like you to kind of touch on that and tell me your thoughts on that.
As far as reparations, just watching the video, I feel like she danced around the question
right
as much as she possibly can, which is what most politicians do. Do they owe Black people reparations, specifically African Americans in this country? Because that's what I want to be clear on. Absolutely, right? Anyone that has an issue with African Americans fighting for reparations is, in fact, any Black person in the diaspora, any Black person in the United States should actually be on board with not trying to get a cut of it necessarily, but to definitely help support that cause, right? And to help support African Americans in that cause. Because the reality is a win for them is a win for all of us. Honestly, that's how I see it. I just think she danced the wrong it like any other politician. There's I'm trying to be careful how I say this. There's like money that's going around, right, for different atrocities done to different, people, right? But when it comes to the people and the United States is all up in the business, right? Mm-hmm. All up in it, all just giving money here, giving money there. But when it comes to African Americans, they are looked over, stepped over, and told to, just work hard and, pull up your bootstraps and work harder for what you got. As if to say the reason why you want reparations is because you don't want to work hard. And that's right. Really not the argument that's happening. I think even whether it's Black politicians, white politicians, politics is a really tricky arena. There's a lot of compromise that has to happen. compromise of your values, your beliefs. You can go in there with a strong mind, ready to do your thing. And I just think it's a beast that if you don't cooperate, you're going to have to exit it. In fact, the people who are in the mindset almost like the spook who sat at the door, they figure they're going to infiltrate, they actually end up getting swallowed up oftentimes, right? So politics is a very interesting arena. It's a big old beast. There's a lot of corruption there. um and so I just think that Black people have to recognize that no one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us. And I know sometimes we get really, really excited when we see someone that looks like us or even close to looking like us. And by the way, when you were talking, you were like, these other, different kinds of Black people. So, the term now is they like to say Black and then they have to add and brown, right?
Right,
To
right.
it. So that's the conversation. But I think Black people need to recognize that it doesn't mean that you don't fight for what's owed to you. Not at all. But also recognize these two things can happen at the same time. Recognize that no one is coming to save you. Reparation is not a savior thing. It's something that's
Mm-hmm.
owed, right, to the people across the diaspora, right? Not just America. There's those of us in the Caribbean. There's those of us on the continent that's owed reparation as well. But it might not be our fight here in America, but it doesn't mean that I cannot support my African American sisters in that fight, right? And then when if Caribbean people get together and say, well, the Danish owe us reparation, the British owe us whoever owes us reparation, then African Americans can also support in that cause as well. But I think is really important to really take that stance. Also teach your children, ain't nobody coming to save us. We're gonna have to figure this thing out, because at the end of the day, politics has never been for us in this country. It never
Mm-hmm.
has.
Mm-hmm.
It's they use, and they use Black people. They get the votes and whatever, and then they discard of Black people, right? Like it's like, okay, you got me in, thank you.
Right.
You can close the door now. You know what I'm saying? But for me, my question to us is always, how many times does that have to happen to us before we take a hint, right? Before we get the message. So that's my take on that. Honestly, she danced around the topic like all of them do. It's I know we love Obama and all of that. For some of us, it is no different than Obama, right? You got to consider the office that these people occupy is the office of the president, right? And there's a whole lot of other factors at play, where certain bills and things have to go through. It's not a president making the decision on his own or her own for the entire country. So there's a lot at play here. So yeah, that's it. I ain't got much of that.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Colette up because I would love to hear what she has to say about this. And yeah, I agree with that. So I think also just that whole concept of peace, Colette, that whole concept of we needing a savior comes to play when I think about politics. And so I just wanted to, kind of highlight that just because I think that we have to understand that how we move also it is indicative of what our core beliefs are. So peace, Colette. Good to see you.
Hey, ladies. What I think about it is, okay, I do agree with Hanifa that. Okay, sit right there. Okay, I do believe that. Black American and people all over from the diaspora does need reparation. The only thing I would say is the reparation should not be given out as financially and money wise. I feel that it should be laws put into place where it should be divided, how it should be given, like in the sense of maybe it should be given for different programs that are needed. Maybe it should be given for different, and those different programs should be provided for homes, different programs that are needed to uplift the Black community within education, especially education programs. So certain things, I don't feel the money should just be given like, hey, here's, you know, a million or 300, whatever the amount that they say for each, you know, family. I think it should be done it should be given towards different programs to be developed, because it's shown time and time again that you give people money and what happens, it's not being spent wisely. So if we have if we have certain things in programs, then therefore we could actually see it, right? We could actually see it and it's tangible, and so it could be used. And as far as Kamala dancing around it, I do agree in that. I think she knows that it's a touchy place for her. So if she touches that subject, it's kind of like, wait a minute, you're choosing a side. Hold on. I thought you
Mhm.
were, you know, I thought you were mixed, or you're for all the entire people. You're for all of America, but mostly you're for this specific group. So now you're saying you want to do something for Black people? Hold on, like, now you're getting too radical. This is too radical. So I think she knows that she has to walk a fine line in saying what she says when it comes to the Black community. That's kind of how the vibe I get from her. And even if you follow her track record, you know, follow her track record from when she, what was she, was it a district attorney in California?
Mhm.
District attorney, right?
Mhm.
um that didn't look too good for her, as far as like how many people that she incarcerated, the Black people that she did incarcerate. Her, that record was not looking too good for her. So and a lot of other things. So I think she knows she has to walk a fine line. And but with doing that, I mean, you're gonna have to choose, in a sense, you're gonna have to choose a side, because every other politician does it. Every other um like you might say, like the Jewish community or the Asian community, like they pick a side, they have a side, they stand strong on the side, they don't try to bring anybody else in, right?
Mhm.
They know what they're fighting for. But once again, the Black community, we always have to be neutral. We always have to be, everybody could come along. Okay, we'll be the last to even get whatever that's actually due to us. So,
Right.
Can I
So,
say,
uh,
can I say something? Can I respond to one thing Colette said? So I've heard this conversation around, and I was almost there around. I don't think that they should be giving money. Here's what I say to that. If you harm me, Colette,
mhm,
and I take you to court and I sue you for a certain amount, do not get to tell me, right? How I am to be compensated to the harm done for me, right? To me,
right,
that's one. So for
right,
me, I think if there's a conversation to be had around how that reparation is given, Black Americans are the ones to have that conversation, not the people who have caused harm, not the people who cause harm and now have to actually pay out. They don't get to determine that. Why I say that?
mhm,
Because there are already a whole bunch of prejudices involved and preconceived notions around Black people, the way they think, the way they live, they're undisciplined. There's a lot of biases there. So the people who's done the harm don't get to call the shots around that. I think
right,
the people who harm has been done to can have that conversation and say, maybe it should be options given. Maybe there are three options where you can either get your reparations like this, or this. But who
right.
comes up with those options should be the people who the harm has been done to.